Today's daf is daf Tes, and we're trying to work out Rabbi Yossi ben Yehuda. We're going through the concept of zeh v'zeh goyrim. That if you have two causes to create something, one is usr and one is mutter, do we say that it's usr because you have isser there, or do we say that the isser sort of dissolves, the isser hano dissolves, and therefore now it's permitted? So we're trying to work out the view of Rabbi Yossi because he said different things that seem to be contradictory. Rabbi Yossi in the mission over here said that you're not allowed to plant under a tree even during the winter because the leaves will fall down. Sounds like he holds that zeh v'zeh goyim. You have the leaves and you have the soil, and that one is asa, one is mutter, and yet it's asa. And previously, Rabbi Yossi said, I don't care if you pulverize the Avodah Zarah and you toss it all around and scatter it everywhere, and it doesn't bother me that it becomes fertilizer. And there it seems that zeh v'zeh goyim is mutter. So we explain it's not a problem. Rabbi Yossi holds that zeh v'zeh goyim is asa, but over there, where Rashi learns, you did something to destroy it, so you mevatel the Avodah Zarah, so there's no isa there at all, and that's why permitted. So the Gemara is now going to explore the view of Rabbi Yossi. Does he taka hold zeh v'zeh goyim mutter or asa? There's a famous question all the Rishonim ask. Even if you hold zeh v'zeh goyim mutter, doesn't mean lechatchila you can go and do something. Otherwise, what's the whole idea of Yisra Hana? Everything it's asa b'hana, just do it as zeh v'zeh, and then all right. It's only b'di'evid. If you did it, it's we say that's mutter b'hana. So they say you're right. That l'chatzila, everyone holds you're not allowed to do is zeh v'zeh goyim. As we'll see later, putting in an oven wood from Avodah Zarah. Of course, you're not allowed to do that. What we're saying over here is when you planted it, the shade, which is the issa, didn't come into effect yet. First, you plant it in the soil, and then later on, when it grows out of the ground, and this happens to be shade, and then the protector is not protected. So therefore, that's not called lechatchila. It's like b'di'evet. By the time it comes around, it's already been done. By the time the isser comes to the fore, it's done. So up to the bottom of the page, and the Gemara wants to know here. You tell me 4 lines at the bottom. Says the Gemara, "V'sava Rabbi Yossi." Rabbi Yossi's opinion is ever game usher. Rabbi Yossi actually holds that it's usher. I have a problem, and that's what you learned this mission. That's why the leaves are a problem. I have a problem somewhere else. Rabbi Yossi says, when it comes to arla, we know that the fruits of an arla, the first 3 years of the tree, you're not allowed to eat. You don't have any benefit from, but the tree itself is not usher. So Rabbi Yossi says, noitin, you're allowed to plant yichur shel arla, the branch of an arla, that you're allowed to do, because the tree itself is not usher b'hana. But they ain't noitin egoy shel arla. You're not allowed to plant the nut, the fruit of the arla. You're not allowed to use that, obviously, because that is usher b'hana, usher chili. You're not allowed to eat it. You don't have any benefit whatsoever. Bipnei shehu pri, and that's the isser. And so what? The Amar Rabbi Yehuda said, Amar Rav said, Moide Rabbi Yossi is Moide. That you not if you planted that what you planted that nut into the ground, and now the tree grows and it has fruits. Those fruits now is zeh v'zeh goyim, the original nut which was aser, and the soil, which the karka elam, which is mutter. And Rabbi Yossi says that im not if you planted it, it's mutter. Or the hirkiv, or if you went ahead and you either you put it on the ground or you attach it to it, graft it to a tree, it is mutter. But what do you see clearly from here? That zeh v'zeh goyim is mutter. Rabbi Yossi. So how can you tell me the Pshat Mishnah he holds also? The Tanyam Hochi, in fact, we learned the Braisa. Moide Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi is moide. She'im not if you planted the hivrich v'hikriv mutter is mutter. Big Machaik is a shayim. I just told you Rashi's first shot. Rashi gives a second shot, which Rashi rejects, and all the shayim love it. The second shot of Rashi is that the tree itself is not what's mutu. We say not is not on its own. Not the vihivrich. In other words, you planted the tree, the walnut. And then you took it and you grafted it to the tree, and then that new thing is mutu. And Rashi, I don't like it because the tree itself is mutu without having to graft it. Like Rashi learns, not to means that any fruit come out of the ground together with the tree is the two joined together. However, most of Shayim, including this case here, but most of Shayim argue with Rashi and they like the second shot. Other Shayim try to defend Rashi, and yeah, the Chi Tema, he very simple answer. Normally, holds zeh v'zeh goyim is mutter, but the case in our mission is Avodah Zarah. Avodah is always treated more harshly, so maybe Avodah Zarah we say zeh v'zeh goyim also. The leaves are a problem. Maybe it's a difference in all of the Averis. And Avodah Zarah was stricter with Avodah Zarah. No, Rabbi Yossi is the only one that we know that holds zeh v'zeh goyim as mutter. And you want to tell me that even this Rabbi Yossi, when it comes to Avodah Zarah, that the leaves, he's asses. I'm going to show you a brisa that says clearly by Avodah Zarah zeh v'zeh goyim as mutter. And if you take Rabbi Yossi away, And we have nobody left. Who's the one who holds that it's mutter by Avodah Zarah? What's this brisa? We have two brises contradicting each other, and the only possible way of explaining it is that one of them is Rabbi Yehuda. And then we have a problem. If he holds that going mutter even by Avodah Zarah, how do you learn Pshat Mishnah by leaves? Why leaves is a problem. You're under the tree. He said even in the winter, if you plant under an ashela tree, it's a problem because the leaves fall down. What's the problem? According to BAC. So where do you see that by Avodah Zarah he holds his mutter? But Tanya one, but I says Sadash and his davla a field that was fertilized with the fertilizer of Avodah Zarah. But likewise, Porush and his patma, you fattened up a porah before you shechte bekashine with fodder from Avodah Zarah. So Tanya one brisa says, wait, even though zev each of these two cases zev the animal didn't only eat kashin of Avodah Zarah. The other thing as well, and yet, and the same thing is with this a field that was in the davla bezevel, but the kark the soil itself was mutter. So both of these are cases of zev goyim. So one brayza says, so the tizra paratich, no problem, go plant. No, but zev goyim is mutter. The Tanya and we learn another brayza, and this is Avodah Zarah. Abra says, "Sada tabar, leave the field alone, so till eventually that all that whatever you put in there is disappears, that the fertilizer is blown away or whatever is gone, and pot it and pot it and let the potter become lean again, so it has no benefit from all the kashin we gave him. In other words, Zeved Goyim is aser. So in Avodah Zarah we have a machlekes. Who holds mutter? The only one that we know that holds mutter is Rabbi Yasi. My love, how Rabbi Yasi, what Rabbanan? So we see that even Avodah Zarah, Rabbi Yasi holds that Zeved Goyim is mutter. So it goes back to our question. Pshat na Mishnah. Says Gemara, no. Loy. Hod Abeleza v'Rabbanan. Rabbi Yasi holds maybe Zeved Goyim mutter in certain cases, but now when it comes to Avodah Zarah, that's why our Mishnah. And Orla is a regular case. What about these two brayses? It's a different machlekes altogether between Rabbi Lezer and the Chachamim. Now, who is this Rabbi Lezer and who's the Chachamim? So now the Gemara will discuss that. So we've moved on. Hi, Rabbi Lezer Rabbanan. Which Rabbi Lezer? Which Rabbanan? Ilay Rabbi Lezer Rabbanan Sa'ir, the famous machlekes Rabbi Lezer Rabbanan in Sa'ir, which we had in Rabbi Sachman. The now we learn Sa'ir shel chulin v'shel truma. You have yeast. That is ordinary yeast, and you have yeast from truma. And what happened was they both fell into a piece of dough. So now they're both working in concert. This is a case of zeh v'zeh. You have a sa'ir of truma and a sa'ir of chulin. Neither of them have the ability to turn it into yeast. The starfu, when they worked together, and now it became yeast. The question is, do we treat this end product like truma or do we treat it like chulin? So Rabbi Lezer says, achra and aniba. Rabbi Lezer says, whatever you put in last, that's what it is. If the last thing you put, the second thing you put in was chulin, it's chulin. The second thing you put in is truma, it's truma. And the Chachamim say, Bein shenafel isa lechatchila. Bein shenafel isa lechatchila. I don't care when the truma came in, beginning and end. Ein aser ajehei b'gdei lechametz. It's not aser at all unless it could do on its own. Because you just said that each one on its own couldn't have done it. So lechayda, unless they have a kei lechametz. But what happens to Taki? It is each one is kedei lechametz. Is zevazeh guiding would be aser even according to Chachamim. If you, let's say if truma fell in, a chulin fell in, and they're both working together, and even though each one had the capacity on its own, it's zevazeh going because Chachamim holds aser. But over here, it's not because the Easter on its own could not do whatever it has to do. But but we're going to learn Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi said our focus is me on Rabbi Lezer. Chachamim definitely holds zevazeh going is aser. And if we're going to prove it, Rabbi Lezer also holds zevazeh going is aser. When we say machlekes Rabbi Lezer Chachamim, we don't mean this Chachamim here. A different Chachamim, but we're trying to find someone, a view that a name. Chacham is not a name. Rabbi Lezer is the name that we have. Now, we do see here Rabbi Lezer holds zevazeh goyim also. He says whatever's last. Because Abayi's comment. Abayi said, Lo Yishanu, when does Rabbi Lezer say his thing that you go after the last one? If the first one is no longer there. Shekodem b'silik is Isa. You removed the Isa, and then you put in the chulin, and now the chulin is the last one. Plus, so there's no zevazeh goyim here because the other one is gone. Okay, then we go after the last one. I'm like, kodem b'silik is Asa. But if you left it in, it's aser. Why? Because zevazeh goyim, and it's aser. So we see that Rabbi Lezer is a name that we have that clearly holds aser. Now, who the Chachamim? The Gemara will discuss in a minute. Umemai says that's a kasha. Who told you that Rabbi is right? Abaye decided to say a ma'aseh kodem b'silik. Rabbi Lezer never said that. Umemai, the time with Rabbi Lezer, who told Rabbi Lezer's reason is kid Abaye. Dilma time Rabbi Lezer should achar nibo. He holds you always look at the last one. Why? Because the last one is what's the Gemara. So like the Makkah Patish, whoever finishes it off is the one that establishes the status of whatever this food is. Bain Silka, Bain Loy Silka. It doesn't make a difference if you took it away. Silka or Loy Silka. It makes no difference if you took it away. Abaye came up with that idea. So Abaye maybe holds Zev as a goyim, but who said that's Pshat Rabbi Lezer? So which Rabbi Lezer Chacham you tell me arguing in Zev as a goyim? El Rabbi Lezer Rabbanan Deitzi. Rabbi Lezer Rabbanan in the case of the wood. What's the mice in the case of the wood? Nan we learned. We also had that whole sugim psachim. Whole sugim we had psachim about Zev as a goyim. After the sugim Esher Loy Mechaven over there. But now we learned not al heimena eitzim. They took from that shade tree eitzim. Then asudim ba'ano. It is also bahano. Yeah. And then what happens now? You took this wood and you heat an oven. He said, "Bazatanu." You heat an oven now. If it's chadash, a brand new oven, a brand new oven needs one good heating to solidify the oven. That means that now that oven strengthens the oven. So, and from now on, the oven can be used for baking food. That means now you maybe Isser on Isser. So the oven itself now becomes like Avodah Zarah. You cannot use it for anything. If it's not a chadash, it's no breda. You got to destroy it. Yoshin, if it's an old oven, I mean the oven already. So you just put, Avodah Zarah, but it's come and go because the oven itself already was beheaded. Then what you do is yutzan. You want to be able to you put wood, the firewood. So b'shas ma'isa, obviously you cannot bake in it because you're gonna have the hana from the tree, the wood from the Avodah Zarah. Let it cool down, and then you're not having any hana. Then you put a new wood. So Yoshin old one, Yutzan, just wait till you no longer have any benefit from the wood from Asheda. What happens if of a boy is a pass? Whether, let's say, it's the new one, you took out the wooden things, but now you're doing a brand new. But remember, the oven itself is also, but you put in our wood, kosher wood. Case of Zev Zegoyim. Of a boy, or let's say an old one, which is kosher, but you put it in our wood, that is Avodah Zarah wood. So it's both of them are cases Zev Zegoyim. Is a pas asura bahano. Bread is also bahano. So what does he clear from here? This opinion here is that Zev Goyim is also. What happens? These out of a ba'achedim, it got mixed up in others. The big machlek is whether you learn ba'achedim. Because we had this in Kufyud, if you remember in the Tzvicha days. If it got, is it treated like a srek? We'll have a machlek more Rabbi Shmuel. Is it treated like a srek sveika? It's achedim, and then achedim and achedes. So we say it's one suffix and another suffix, and therefore it should be mutter. Or even this achedim is still osir. And we ask a question on the one who holds that should be mutter, and we say it's talking about here that the whole mixture in the middle went into the next one. So it's like one long suffix. Or at least rave of this mixture went to the other one. So it's like one long stuff. But anyway, bottom line is they're all asabana. Rabbi Lezer says what you do is yoilich hana liyamamelech. The hana, you take the money from the benefit and you throw that in yamamelech, and then you can go ahead and eat the bread. Big machek is a shayim. What money we're talking about? The value of the wood or the value of the bread? The wood is generating the isur. The bread is the recipient of this. So what exactly are you throwing away there? Big machlek shayim there. Another machlek shayim is okay. Now you threw the money away. So what type of letter saying it? You're allowed to eat it, or just you're allowed to have enough? How far do we go with this pigeon? And because you're no longer having enough, so maybe it's even mutzachil, which some of the shayim hold. Then you invite so answer back. Ain't that's not how you redeem Avodah Zarah. You can't redeem it. Is so what do we see clear from here? That Rabbi Lezer says you have to take that no and throw it away. In other words, Zev Zegoyim is awesome. He's just giving you a remedy. So this is the name we know Rabbi Lezer holds awesome. Fine. But who are the Chacham the matter? The Chacham are even more machmer. The Chacham say ain't pidyon Rabbi Chacham. They hold that it's awesome. I mean, everyone agrees here that Zev Zegoyim is awesome. The question is only if you have a remedy. So who are the Chachamim? You're saying some machlekes Rabbi Lezer Chacham. Rabbi Lezer holds Zev Zegoyim is awesome, and the Chacham hold mutter. Who are the Chachamim? Which Chachamim? Well, it says who are these Rabbanon that you say are Rabbanon? They hold Zev mutter. Ilay but Rabbanon the eitzim achunim achmeri. They're restricted. El Rabbanon the Rabbanon by Sa'od. They say over there that we don't care. We don't care if what came first, what came last. If it's enough to make a chametz, it's aser because it's no longer zever goyim. These alone is aser. But if each one couldn't have done it on its own, Chacham said in the previous price, if each one could not have done it on its own, you had to use both together. It's mamish zever goyim. They hold that as mutter. So they're the ones that hold mutter. So the aim the Shamla Rabban and Mekili said, oh, the Mekel by Sa'id about the Chami Mekili. We're trying to find the opinion about Avodah Zarah. Who holds that the Mekel? Let's go back to our first answer. Rabbi Yasi, Rabbanah. So you asked the question: if Rabbi Yasi holds that what? Rabbi Yasi holds that the Zebedee Gadim is mutter even by Avodah Zarah. So how can the Mishnah say by the case of leaves, even in the winter? In the summer, everybody holds zasa because you're having hana from the tree. But in the winter, you're having no hana from the tree. The abundance say that it's mutter. Rabbi Yasi said it's also because the leaves are falling down. So he's not Zebedee Gadim, and Rabbi Yasi holds that it's mutter. Says him, what you're right. But Rabbi Yasi l'divrayim the Rabbanan. He's talking to the Rabbanan. You guys hold that Zebedee Gadim is also Zebedee Gadim mutter. No problem. Even in fact, according to Moshe Shainim, even in the summer, he holds that you're allowed to. When you're mamish having hana from the tree, because you also have the soil. And Zebedee Gadim, it's mutter. Liditchu. But you hold Zebedee Gadim also, and you tell me in the summer it's also, but the winter it's mutter. Why should it be mutter in the winter? L'chaydi is still benefiting from the leaves. That means Zebedee Gadim also. Oidel mi is afirak in Meishamim. That vegetables in Meishamim should be also because it's you're getting down on the leaves. I know it's a good question. Like we learned yesterday, Mordei Beikana said name that what you lose more than you gain because the fact that there's no sun. That blocks out the sun, you lose out so much more than what you gain from a few leaves that fall down in the fertilizer. So therefore, they say no hana. If taka would be zebedee goyim, taka would be usher, but there's no zeh. The zeh of leaves doesn't benefit anything. In fact, you lose more than you gain. We brought it out from oil when you're stripped the oil by a psulim mikdash. Amar Rabbi Yonah Shema Allah Rabbi Yisrael, Allah Rabbi Yisrael. Who gets there was this garden? These double bezabo just gonna be right. That's halacha. These double bezabo they use fertilizer from Avodah Zarah, from what? From animals Avodah Zarah. We have hana from this field or not? And therefore, even though the fertilizer was iser, but you have as a karkas, it's mutter. Next mission. Not only we took wood from the Asher tree. We just learned that Asuri man not just man no. He said, but it's be heated up an oven. We just did that thing more. Im chuda chadash a new oven. You have to destroy it because the whole oven is built on this. Im yash an old oven. You have to wait till it cools down, so you have no benefit from the trees, from the logs there from Avodah Zarah. But you make the bread Asuri bano. It's also bano. And it's arba bachedes. They got mixed up with others. Cool and Asuri bano. They're all also bano. Rabbi says, we should just learn the Gemara Ben. They said to him, ain't pigeon lavin. You can't redeem Avodah Zarah. Then the Mishnah continues. What happens now? The exact same principle, but a different example. Not lemon karker. If you took from it a piece of wood to use, let's say, to help you out in weaving. Also bahana, you're having hana. All right, by the beggar. Now you made a product of beggar. Also bahana, it's also bahana. These added ba'achedim, all also bahana. That's what it is. Talking about it's like it's a wooden piece that you help to align the threads on the warp on the machine. So it helps you out. So without that, it's very hard to weave. So the end product is asur, even though it's l'chayda heta nisa together as everything, it's asur. And Abelezer says yelechano yam melech. So this is what we brought. A proof that Abelezer holds that everything asur. Sorry. So the same thing. Oh yeah, what are you paying for exactly? Or the final begging. And here the gear says it got mixed up with others and others and others. And so the machlek is very good if you get it or not. Rabbi Lezer says there's no pidyon for it. Says the Gemara, it's the same principle. What do you tell me? A mice with bread and a mice with a beggar. It's the same principle. So that was that great. And the question is, can you remedy it or not? And this Mishnah holds that's ever going to ask. So you must see both. The Ashmini Kamai, you know the case of the wood, the oven. Over there, Abelaz says that what? You can go ahead and redeem it. Mishum the be'idna the kagomra pas koloser. It's much weaker, By the time the bread is ready, the wood is gone. The Easter is long gone. There's no Easter in the bread itself. The bread now is a product on its own. But karka, when it comes to the case of the karka, the isla should be, the isla is right there. It doesn't interfere. Ema moed rabbanon will say that that they maybe the moed rabbanon that you cannot redeem it because the isla is present all the time. You see the karka. Biyash min the karka by karka bahal kamer rabbanon over here. The rabbanon say that. Over here, the rabbanon say about that there's no way you can redeem it because the isla is still around. I will pass, but my bread by the time the bread is ready, the wood is ready gone. I am moed rabbanon that all you do is redeem it by throwing away the money. It's you need both. What? You can redeem it by just paying, throwing away the money. Nobody have no hana from it. You throw the money away, you have no hana from it. You can, others say, only if that individual beg it or whatever, or the wood. This was it says halacha kirabelez. This is only talking about bread. Why? Because you can't really see the Isser not noticeable at all. Chavish, not a barrel of wine, like over there. If you mix in yain nesach together with, let's say, ordinary wine, there's no, you can't say, oh, let me throw out the value of the yain nesach that's mixed into the wine, because you can't do that. The only thing you could do, by the way, is you sell the whole thing to a guy, and you don't take the amount of money that corresponds to the yain nesach mixed in. Exactly, that's the only thing you can do.
You can't like we said by Shabbos, you can make you have to make truma on Shabbos. You have in mind whatever is left in the barrel afterwards. That was what the truma was supposed to be. You can't do such a thing.
No, here the Easter is still there. The yain nesach is sitting in the barrel. And because these are still there, you can't just throw away and then say, okay,
it's not right.
Exactly. Now, it's clear by Chavis, we're not talking about you should be able to drink it. Nobody's even have a minute you should be able to drink it. There's yain nesach there. And throw the money in Yam Melech, how's that help? It's the question here, clearly Hana. And that's why there's an argument in the previous case of the bread, whether it's the Hana or whether you could eat it, because the Gemara is comparing it to Chavis, or drawing a contrast to Chavis. But even the Chavis is muteris, definitely not for drinking, but to have Hana. Who gave the person he got mixed up yain nesach with his own wine. Also, take $4, throw in the river. And it's all mutter. Hakol mutulach. Mishnah. Kate said mevatla. So how do you cancel the shada? Then you have to do pula. So kirsim. A goyish avodah zarah you can cancel. You can't cancel either should own the avodah zarah you can. But these are trees, public trees. So Kate Mavatla, what's a guys? Kirsim, you take off the little splinters, or visited, you prune the trees, the moist part of it, not the dead oak. So therefore, you did a pula to get rid of it. Not the menamaka took from it a stick, a shabit, or a branch. I feel all even a leaf. Hareze bottle. You mavatla the tree. Shifa. Let's say you're trimming the tree, so depends. Litzarcha, you're doing it to benefit the tree, then it's an avodah zarah, asura. Then you do it's all benefiting the tree. If you're just destroying, then mutter is mutter. You're doing it for yourself. So these pieces that you break off, let's say you did it for the benefit of the tree, but now you have the branches that fell down. You trimmed the tree and pieces fell down. What's the shavings? What's all over there? And what's the din over there? So you wouldn't battle the tree at all in this case. You did it tzarcha. He's pleading about Avuna L'chiyah Barav. Chad Omar Asur, one says Asur, but Chad Omar Mutarin. Tanya command the Omar Mutarin, even though because the guy who cut it off, even though he's doing it to benefit the tree, has no interest in the shavings or the little pieces that fell down. He's not going to take it and worship it, even though it emanated from a shayla tree. Therefore, the guy was mavatla. If he did it he did it for his own benefit, then he everything is mutter, even the tree itself, because you cancel it. He did it for the benefit of the tree. He asura, she is asa. But the pieces are mutter. Yeah, the Yisrael and a yid that what do you call the trimmed avodah zarah. He did it bein litzarcha shefeh asur. They're all asur. Even did it for you cannot be mevatel of his avodah zarah. So the Gemara, right? A yid cannot be mevatel avodah zarah. So it says clearly that even the shefeh is all asur. Even we did it to destroy. Even with Avodah Zarah broke by itself, and we had a big machlek what happens in the Gemara, and all the Rishonim try to reconcile what's going on. This is the same machlek as before. Is this a different machlek altogether? So we'll see. We'll see. Okay. Rav says, still remain Avodah Zarah. That what if it broke on its own, every piece of Avodah Zarah, and every single piece you have to mevatel separately. Every piece of mevatel separately. Shmuel says Avodah Zarah is not bottle only that only you went against the normal way. What's that? More explain a minute. Right now, it sounds like the only time it's bottle is if this happens naturally. But you want to add it up, but then if this happens naturally, that the leaves fall off, they remain Avodah Zarah. Allah comment. Ein Avodah Kacham Tzich Levatel El Der Dilasa. That when if you broke the tree, that's bittul. If you didn't, if it falls off by itself, then you have to do something to mevatel it. Do something mevatel it. It's the Gemara Lema. So what's the machlekes Rabban and Shmuel? Lema Hakami Masavar Oivdin Lishvarim. One of them holds that you worship. Rav says you have to do mevatel every single piece because he holds you oived even the pieces. Well, Masavar another one holds ain't Oivdin Lishvarim. You don't do every single piece. So the Gemara no. Kuli Amma Oivdin hold you are oived Lishvarim. Even though Shmuel said before that that Shivrei Oived Chacham is mutter, that's talking about that we don't know what happened there. We don't know if it broke by itself. That's why we say it's mutter. But over here, when we're talking, and in fact, we believe that most Avodah Zarah does not break by itself. The reason is because Goyim have a lot of covered for the Avodah Zarah, and they put safeguards that it shouldn't break. So if you found a piece of Avodah Zarah, says Shmuel, probably somebody broke it off. And that's what's mutter. But over here, that we're talking about a case where you know that it fell off by itself. So the Gemara over here, we're talking about Shivrei Shvarim. The machlek is we're talking about a piece of a piece. And that's what the pieces broke further down to further pieces. And that's the machlek is. That's one way of looking at it. Everyone knows that piece of the pieces, that's for sure is mutter. Avodah Zarah made up of parts, like a Lego set. You put it together yourself, and now it's a part. And a case where it's very easy to put it back together. Anybody can put that together. But what you found was pieces. How do we view that? Can be Masav keep it had Rav hold since you could easily put it back like bottle. It's not bottle unless you it was standing, for example, that it fall down, whatever. That here you don't have, when you have to mevatel it, things that fall down naturally, leaves. You have to do something about it. But since it doesn't fall apart by itself, somebody took it apart, that already is bittul. You don't have to do anything further. That's shmul. Now we have a Avodah Zarah called Markulis. Markulis is a Avodah Zarah named after one of the Marcus, and basically what it is a very weird Avodah Zarah. It's made up of a bunch of rocks. Basically, it used to be like a tripod, 2 rocks on the bottom and 1 boulder on top, and that was Avodah Zarah. Says Rabbi Shmuel, Shalosh Avanim, we found 3 stones, zu b'tzad zu, alongside each other, parallel to each other, not a tripod. Is b'tzad Markulis, and it was next to an existing Markulis. Is how do we view these stones? Is asudis. If we found 3, it's us. We'll soon see why. But shtayim, we found 2. It definitely it's not an Avodah Zarah mutaris. And Chum say relevant 2, 3, 1 is all the same. Shenidasima if it's visible next to it asudis. But if it's not visible, if it's not next to Makulis, it is mutter. What's going on here? Talking about the Mishlei, they hold Oivdin Lishvarim. Rabbanan say that even if that probably came from Makulis, and therefore it's a broken part of Makulis, one of the rocks fell off, and therefore still even though it's broken, it's still Avodah Zarah. People worship it. Now it makes sense. When do we assume it came from the original Makulis, and when don't we? So need to see if it's close to it. It's Avodah Zarah. I don't care if it's 1 boulder or 2 or 3, makes no difference. Even though the Mishnah says 2. But if it's not near the Makulis, then Mutaris, it's not Avodah Zarah, it's Mutar. And Rabbi Shmuel Maxar, it's always hard to understand. Manashach. If they even worship, parts that fell off of Avodah Zarah, then a filter Tartanam, even 2 or even 1, litzit. And he ain't Oivdin Lishvarim. People don't worship stones. And I feel class nami loy. Then what's the 3 stones next to each other? What is it? It's not a Makulis, which is 2 and 1 on top. This is how it goes. And if we know for a fact it came from the Makul, there's no argument. Everyone holds it's Avodah Zarah. And maybe different other Avodah Zarah because it's made up of pieces. It's not like Avodah Zarah was full and something chipped off, and how do we view that? No, it came from pieces and fell off. That's the normal way. And even the one who said that generally you don't worship pieces. Normal Avodah Zarah, is made up of rocks. It's normal. What do you mean? You don't know what it is. You see rocks on the floor. So again, if it's within an amma from the original makulis, it's quite probable it fell from the hakalasuris. We're machmir. It's more than one amma away, but less than 4 ammas. If it's more than 4 ammas away, everyone agrees it did not come from the makulis. The wind doesn't carry boulders or rocks. But if it's within 4 ammas, between 1 and 4, that's the machlekes. What are you talking about? Betzad makulis, it says right next to the makulis. My betzad ammas, within the 4 ammas. Rabbi Shmuel holds oisin. Now this is interesting. What's the argument? Rabbi Shmuel holds they used to make a mini version of the large makulis. Exactly, the Buddha's over there. In Rabbi Shmuel savar oisin makulis, cotton betzad makulis gadol. They make a mini version, so therefore only 3. Even though it's not exactly like a makulis, because makulis is a tripod, this is side by side, it's enough. This is a mini version, they weren't so careful. The damyel makulis asuris is asur shtayim umutaris. Or but Rabbanan hold ein oisin makulis cotton betzad makulis gadol. There's such thing as a mini makulis, and therefore all it is a question: did it come from the original makulis or not? Is loishna shalosh loishna shtayim nidus ima if it's within 4 amas asuris? She'ein nidus ima not there mutaris is mutar. Tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem. Have a good day.